Christmas, everybody. It is the celebration of the birth of Christ. We do know that there are some historically inaccurate days as far as the 25th. Is it could be like anywhere from the 20th to the 25th? I'm pretty sure. That is the reason for the season. That is the reason why we have this holiday. It brings a lot of people cheer and joy, and I want to tell you that in the last few weeks I've felt like some overwhelming joy in my heart and peace in my heart, and I'm gonna say thank you, God, for that. And then secondly, I'm going to say it's not without conflict, though. It's not without a lot of tears and a lot of prayer and a lot of understanding what am I doing. I mean, I have people call me crazy all the time for doing this blog, and all I can tell them is like, it is what it is. There's certain things that you have to do, and there's this person in my life who like letting get to me for some reason, but I mean, certain things that he says, he's right on certain things. But I just felt it in my heart that he needed to be like shown a different way, but he's just very, very, very narrow in the way that he wants to believe and see things right now. And even though he's hurting, he's willing very much so to hurt than to listen to anything that I have to say, because honestly, it's just a story to him, and whether he chooses to believe it or not is up to him, because it hasn't been in his experience. So I can't tell you about the peace of God. You'd have to either believe that I have it, or secondly, experience it for yourself in order for you to realize that it's a truth. And so he goes on and on about how, I'm 28 years old. I mean, he was just tearing me down yesterday. Bad. And getting my degree and things like that. And just it was really crazy, because it was every thought that I had in my head, all of those like negative thoughts, just at my front door, and or like right in my face, everything, every like negative, don't do this is crazy, don't get up like this, don't listen to music like this, don't read these books, every everything in my life that I like have that negative thought talk. I mean, he was just verbally saying it to me. And so it was insane. It was like literally talking to like the Diablo, like the side of you that you're just like, trying to drown out with the word of the Lord and things like that. And I could feel it in my spirit, but it was also too, I was really upset at myself that I reacted in the way that I did, because I should have said nothing. And I will continue to love this guy, but I will not say and will not react anymore, because there is no point. Because I myself, I don't need to prove anything to him anymore. And I felt like I need to show him, and because when you're so happy, you want other people to be happy too. And I just have a heart for the broken, because I've been broken a lot, and it's hard to deal with that, and it's hard to go through those things and alone, and hate everybody and be in that dark place. And a lot of times I wish somebody would try and have got me out of there, like had love enough to like come and get me beyond myself, and but then they did, kind of, and I didn't want to see it, so it's crazy. This is like a let go, let God kind of experience, and I can't save him from his own self. He doesn't feel that he needs to be. But anyway, I see him every day, so that's kind of like why I chose to try to, reflect some of the things that I believe in, and also just fight, you know. I am a fighter, so. But it's rough. It's emotional turmoil with him. Emotional turmoil, you know. So, anywho, let's read the rest of Acts chapter 21. It's going to be a long video today. I've already been talking for 5 minutes, but we have a lot to say, okay? We're also going to look at Christmas and what Christmas is in the Bible and what it means and the history, okay? So let's see. We read Paul was arrested yesterday, and that was Acts chapter 1, verse 27. Verse 28 says, "Shouting, fellow Israelites, help us. This man who teaches everywhere against our people and our law in this place, and besides has brought the Greeks into the temple and defiled this holy place." They had previously seen the Trophimus and the Ephesian in the city with Paul and assumed that Paul had brought him into the temple. The whole city was aroused, and the people came running from all directions. Seizing Paul, they dragged him from the temple, and immediately the gates were shut. While they were trying to kill him, news reached the commander of the Roman troops that the whole city of Jerusalem in the uproar. He at once took some officers and soldiers and ran down to the crowd. When the rioters saw the commander and his soldiers, they stopped beating Paul. The commander came up and arrested him and ordered him to be bound to 2 chains. Then he asked who was it that he had done. Then he asked who was and what he had done, who he was and what he had done. Some in the crowd shouted one thing and another some other things. And so it's like some in the crowd shouted one thing and some other, and since the commander could not get the truth because of the uproar, he ordered that Paul be taken into a barracks. When Paul reached the steps, the violence of the mob was so great that he had been carried by the soldiers. The crowd that followed him kept shouting, "Get rid of him! Get rid of him!" As the soldiers were about to take Paul into the barracks, he asked the commander, "May I say something to you?" "Do you speak Greek?" he replied. "Aren't you the Egyptian who started a revolt and led 4,000 terrorists out into the wilderness some time ago?" Paul answered, "I am a Jew from Taris in Cilicia, a citizen of no ordinary city. Please let me speak to the people." After receiving the commander's permission, Paul stood on the steps and mentioned to the crowd when they were all silent, and he said in Aramaic, this is Acts chapter 22, "Brothers and fathers, listen now to my defense." When they heard him speak to them in Aramaic, they became very quiet. Then Paul said, "I am a Jew born in Taris of Sicilia, but brought up in the city. I studied under Gamaliel and was trained in the law of our ancestors. I was just as zealous for God as any of you today. I persecuted the followers of this way to their death, arresting both men and women and throwing them into prison, as a high priest and all council can themselves testify. I even obtained letters from them to their associates in Damascus and went there to bring these people as prisoners to Jerusalem and to be punished. About noon, as I came to Damascus, suddenly a bright light from heaven and flashed around me. I fell to the ground and heard the voice say to me, 'Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?' 'Who are you, Lord?' I asked. 'I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom you are persecuting,' he replied. My companions saw the light, but they did not understand the voice of him who was speaking to me. 'What shall I do, Lord?' I asked. 'Get up,' the Lord said, 'and go into Damascus. There will be told all that you have been assigned to do.' My companions led me in my hands into Damascus because the brilliance of the light had blinded me. A man named Irenaeus came to see me. He was a devout observer of the law and highly respected by all the Jews living there. He stood beside me and said, 'Brother Saul, receive your sight.' And at that very moment I was able to see him. Then he said, 'The God of our ancestors has chosen you to know his will and to see his righteous one and to hear the words of his mouth. You will be a witness to all people of what you have seen and heard. And now that you are willing to wait for, get up and be baptized and wash your sins away, calling on his name.' When I returned to Jerusalem and was praying at the temple, I fell into a trance and saw the Lord speaking to me. Quick, he said, leave Jerusalem immediately, because the people here will not accept your testimony about me. Lord, I replied, these people know that I went to from one synagogue to another to imprison and beat those who believe in you. And then the blood of your martyr, Stephen, was shed. I stood there giving my approval and guarding the clothes of those who were killing him. Then the Lord said to me, go, and I will send you far to the Gentiles. The crowd listened to Paul until he said this. Then he raised their voices and shouted, rid the earth of him, he is not fit to live. As they were shouting and throwing off their cloaks and finding dust into the air, the commander ordered that Paul be taken into barracks. He directed that he be flogged and interrogated in order to find out why the people were shouting at him like this. As they stretched him out on a flog, Paul said to the centurion standing there, it is legal for you to flog a Roman citizen who hasn't even been found guilty. When the centurion heard this, he went to the commander and reported it. What are you going to do? He asked. This man is a Roman citizen. The commander went to Paul and asked, tell me you are a Roman citizen. Yes, I am, he answered. Then the commander said, I had to pay a lot of money for my citizenship, but I was born a citizen. Paul replied. Those who were about to integrate him withdrew immediately. The commander himself was alarmed, and he realized that he had put Paul, a Roman citizen, in chains. The commander wanted to find out exactly why Paul was being accused by the Jews. So the next day he released him and ordered the chief priests and all the members of the Sanhedrin to assemble. Then he brought Paul and had him stand before him. Paul looked straight at the centurion and said, my brothers, I have fulfilled my duty in God and all good conscience to this day. At this high priest Ananias ordered these standing near Paul to strike him on the mouth. Then Paul said to them, God will strike you, you whitewashed wall. You sit there to judge me according to the law, yet you yourself violate the law by the commanding that I be struck. Those who were standing near Paul said, how dare you insult God's high priest? Paul replied, brothers, I did not realize that he was a high priest, for it is written, do not speak evil about the ruler of your people. Then Paul, knowing that some of the other Sadducees and other Pharisees, called out in Sanhedrin, my brothers, I am a Pharisee, descendant of Pharisees. I stand on trial because of the hope of the resurrection of the dead. When he said this, dispute broke out between the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and assembly was divided. The Sadducees said that there is no resurrection, and that there is neither angels nor spirits, but that the Pharisees believe all these things. There was a great uproar, and some of the teachers of the law who were Pharisees stood up and argued vigorously. We find nothing wrong with this man, he said. What if a spirit or an angel has spoken to him? The dispute became so violent that the commander was afraid Paul would be torn to pieces by them. He ordered the troops to go down and take him away from them by force and bring them to their barracks. The following night, the Lord stood near Paul and said, take courage, as you have testified about me in Jerusalem, so you must also testify me in Rome. The next morning some Jews formed a conspiracy and bound themselves with an oath not to eat or drink until they had killed Paul. More than 40 men were involved in this plot. They went to the chief priest and elders and said, we have taken a solemn oath not to eat anything until we have killed Paul. Now then, you and Sanhedrin petitioned the commander to bring him before you on your pretext of wanting more accurate information about his case. We are ready to kill him before he gets here. But when the son of Paul's sisters heard this plot, he went into the barracks and told Paul. Then Paul called one of the centurions and said, take this young man to the commander. He has something to tell him. So he took him to the commander. The centurion said, Paul, the prisoner, sent for me and asked me to bring this man to you because he has something to tell you. The commander took the young man by the hand, drew him aside, and asked, What is it you want to tell me? He said, Some Jews have agreed to ask you to bring Paul before the Sanhedrin tomorrow on the pretext of wanting more accurate information about him. Don't give in to them, because more than 40 of them are waiting to ambush him. They have taken an oath not to eat or drink until they have killed him. They are ready now, waiting for your consent to request. The commander dismissed the young man with warning, Don't tell anyone that you have reported this to me. Paul is now transferred to Caesarea. Then he called to the centurions and ordered them, Get ready a detachment of 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, and 200 spearmen to go into Syria at 9 tonight. Provide horses for Paul so that he may be taken safely to a Governor Felix. He wrote a letter as follows: Claudius Laius, to His Excellency Governor Felix, greetings. This man was seized by Jews, and they were all about to kill him. But I came with my troops and rescued him, for I have learned that he is a Roman citizen. I wanted to know why they were accusing him, so I brought him to Sanhedrin. I found that the accusation had to do with questions about their law, but there was no charge against him that deserved death or imprisonment. When I was informed of a plot being carried out against the man, I sent him to you at once. I also ordered his accusers to present to you their case against him. So soldiers carrying out their orders took Paul with them during the night and brought him as far as the Antipyrus. The next day they let the cavalry go with him. While they returned to the barracks, when the cavalry arrived in Caesarea, they delivered a letter to the governor and handed Paul over to him. The governor read this letter, asked what province he was from. Learning he was from Cilicia, he said, I will hear your case when your accusers get here. Then he ordered Paul to be kept up under the guard in Herod's place. So that was Acts chapter 21, 22, and 23. Tomorrow we're going to read Acts chapter 24, Paul's trial before Felix. Just so you know, we do have only 3, so after 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. So 4 more chapters left in this segment of the book of Acts. I don't know what you got from that, but all I could get is that Paul had one mission to complete, and though he had been a persecutor of Christians, he listened when God talked to him, and he turned away. God goes after the most evil people and turns them for good. And I don't know if it's because he understands that they're able to, that he created them, and that he knows what's inside of them, and that they get very, very blinded by power and by rules and by your ego and by what it is that you should be doing in accordance to the social structure. A lot of people accuse God of being very almost cruel for the testing that he does with people throughout the Bible. And if you think about it, it does seem that way. But it also is it's truly a test. We were created with the free will to choose to love God. And so I constantly have this idea back and forth in my head. If we were created to freely love God, why did he create us knowing that the only full life we could ever lead was with him? So I don't understand that. But I also don't understand why the sky is blue or why the trees are green. I mean, I can break down the scientifics for you, but why is it that way? I mean, what is the reason? I can't tell you. The same way I can't tell you that this is a God that made you and that's what it is, and so trying to go around it and you're going to go in circles back and forth because there is no answer to the answer. That's the answer. It is that way. the Alpha and the Omega. So I think when God talks about being fearful and stuff, it's like, nobody comes before him. And it's not because it's not because he's like cold and distant, angry, and, it's because he's sovereign. And you should find refuge in that, because to have a leader such great as he is a gift. There's a lot of bad people out there that you can choose to follow, but Jesus did exist, and his teachings do still survive, and he was not for war. And I don't care what anybody else thinks out there or tells you. There is no right war in the name of God. In the New Testament, he was a peaceful God. The only weapon he had was the truth, and that was the only thing that caused violence, All right, so I just want to say that to you, because you're going to, when you come to Christ and you decide to believe, you in your head and your body and your mind and your hair, like my hair is your eyes, like your skin becomes radiant, right? And it's unreal. But you will also be hated. Like, people just they hate the light. I mean, they really do. That's why God talks about being one or the other, like you either for me or you're against me. Like there's no in between, You can't. You can't be on both sides. You will drive yourself insane, But like I said, so one, you have ultimate peace, but also war in the physical sense. Peace in your mind, which nobody can take from you. Nobody can take your soul from you. But they can take away your social structure, your ego, your physicality, clothes, money, all this kind of stuff. They can take that from you because of what you believe. But the thing that God offers is not in this dimension, and it's in another dimension. And so as you grow up and mature, you start to realize the more that you have, you can get all of these things, these mouse, this computer, this, I can grow my hair out, but it means nothing if I have no peace in my heart. So I continuously am in these moments, right? And I can never fully appreciate them because I'm thinking about the next thing that I can get. So that's why God says, like, there is no other God before me, meaning you will be no slave to clothes. You will be no slave to drugs, to no other thing before me. Those are things. Things pass away, but my word shall not pass away. I mean, it's so logical to me. It makes so much sense, But that's not to say to you that I don't have doubts sometimes, that I don't want to do this video blog sometimes, that I would very much like to go back to the life that I led. Very good at being a very bad, wild child. Very good at that, But I know that there's something inside of me that's greater. I can feel it. It's beyond me. It's like a gravitational pull. It's this thing it calls me back, like literally, Do I hear the voice of God? I think I literally am going to tell you, like, honest, plain face, one time that I can really tell you that I heard something that wasn't my own, and I kept thinking, that's not my own, because you can self-talk, and you know the voice in your head, and it was when I was having an anxiety attack driving, and I was freaking out, and I could just hear this still small voice, like the old saying, it's gonna be okay. You're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. The only thing that I needed to hear at that time. And I tell people this story and they think I'm nuts, But yet they are so willing to believe in something else that they have no proof of either. Like hard, solid proof, That's why it's philosophy. It's not a science backed, And it's a trip. It's a trip how people really just, I mean, if you really get down to it, they really they really don't want to believe. I mean, really, really. I mean, I myself have that same struggle, but I know you have to keep reading the Word of God. It's like your food, It is your bread. Okay, so what does the Bible say about Christmas? This is a very long video today, so okay. History of Christmas and because this is J.W. Jehovah Witness. Huh. The history of customs. So that's just a kind of an interesting view. We can look at that. Let's see. Celebrating Jesus' birthday. The early Christians did not celebrate Jesus' birthday because they considered the celebration of anyone's birth to be a pagan custom. The World Book Encyclopedia. December 25th, there is no proof that Jesus was born on that date. Church leaders likely choose this date to coincide with the pagan festivals held on around the winter solstice. Gift giving, feasting, partying. The Encyclopedia Americana says Saturnalia, a Roman feast celebrated in mid-December, provide the model for many of the merry-making customs of Christmas. From the celebration, for example, we're derived from the elaborate feasting, the giving of gifts, and the burning of candles. This is according to the Encyclopedia Britannica. Notes that all works and businesses were suspended during Saturnalia. Christmas lights. According to the Encyclopedia of Religion, Europeans decorated their homes with lights and evergreens of all kinds to celebrate the winter solstice to combat evil spirits. Mistletoe and holly. The Druids ascribed magical properties to the mistletoe. In particular, the evergreen holly was worshipped as a promise of the sun's return. Christmas tree. Tree worship, common among the pagan Europeans, survived after the conversion of Christianity. One of the ways in which tree worship survived is a custom of placing a Yule tree at the entrance or inside of a midwinter holiday. Yes, a lot of people believe Christmas is a pagan holiday. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't foresee the God of all the universe as being like, no, don't celebrate that. Like, I really don't feel like it's on that level, But, I mean, there's people with a whole lot more discipline than I have and convictions than I have. And so, yeah, I mean, that's how they feel. I mean, Christmas is a time where people get anxious and they freaking can't buy enough stuff and they can't, well, then I think we missed the whole point. But if you get a day out of the year to celebrate and the government has recognized it as a national holiday and you don't have to go to work, I mean, is it that bad? I don't really think that. But as far as like, does it coincide with the Bible? Does it, is it direct, tradition of the Bible? Absolutely not. I don't believe that either. So, that's what I think. You're welcome to leave a comment and let me know what you think. I'm sure you have a lot to say. As I'm figuring out that most people do. Okay. So let's see. I think we read the student of history. The mayfly seems tragic creature. Mayflies are insects and develop. We read that. So, as the day fades into night, you have long a day. You look back on all you did, the impacts you made, the mistakes, the laughter, the love. You sit on your porch, swing, and watch the day fades into the night. The fireflies dance, the crickets serenade. It feels right to sit here and notice that time is short and that it is all okay. At the end of your day, or at the end of your life, imagine yourself looking back with a sense of peace. You didn't waste your time. You welcomed new beginnings and you enjoyed each season. You didn't allow history to repeat itself. You lived for today. You planned for tomorrow. You defined your life by the time you were in. You lived for the one who lives outside of time. The clock winds down, slumber beacons, and the darkness of the night turns into the light forever. From everlasting to everlasting you are God. 1,000 years in your sight are like a day that has just gone by, or like a watch in the night. Yet you sweep people away in the sleep of death. Psalm 90. Just give me a second, I'll be right out. You need your rest. Roller coasters are a fun ride. They thrill with their twists and turns. They terrify you with the illusion that you're in an immortal peril. They exhaust you with the relentless ups and downs. But imagine that you couldn't get off the roller coaster. You had no break from enduring it over and over. Without pause, then it wouldn't be nearly as enjoyable. Too many of us choose to stay on the roller coaster. We work too many hours. When we are not working, it's home projects, family obligations, committee meetings, or church events. We never lay off the gas pedal and wonder why we have nothing left to tank. Your body, mind, and spirit, and the world itself run on a cycle of work and rest. It's not just about ceasing the activity, it's about refreshment and restoration. It's time to get off the roller coaster. You need your rest. When I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was guided under the sun. Ecclesiastes 2:11. All right, well, I hope that stuff helps you today. I think that was probably a word for Erica because I do need to rest. I will see you tomorrow at December 26th. Thank you for listening and have a great Christmas.